This is the story of how Rosa Martinez, a humble immigrant maid working in silence, shocked an entire millionaire household when a single moment revealed who she truly was. A story of prejudice, unexpected love, and the power of invisible kindness, and how one overlooked woman changed everything. What no one knew was the camera never lies. Rosa Martinez woke every morning at 5 a.m. in a room barely larger than a closet, tucked away in the far corner of the Patterson mansion. At 32, her hands were weathered beyond her years, shaped by labor and loss. She was a widow, a survivor, an immigrant from Guatemala who'd left everything behind after her husband's death, arriving in America with nothing but hope wrapped in callous palms. The Patterson estate was a monument to wealth, marble floors that echoed with emptiness, crystal chandeliers that caught light but no warmth, and hallways so vast you could forget people lived there at all. Rosa moved through these spaces like a ghost, dusting furniture that cost more than she'd earned in a lifetime, polishing silverware for dinners she'd never attend. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson rarely looked at Rosa. She spoke about her in the third person, even when Rosa stood 3 feet away. Make sure she doesn't use the good towels. Tell her the upstairs bathroom needs attention. Rosa had learned to become invisible. It was easier that way, but invisibility has a way of teaching you to see what others miss. Rosa noticed things. She noticed how Mr. James Patterson left for work before dawn and returned after midnight, his children already asleep. She noticed how the triplets, 7-year-old Emma, Ethan, and Ella, wandered the mansion like little ghosts themselves, their silence not by choice but by biology, born deaf, born into a world that didn't know how to reach them. And Rosa noticed something else. Back in Guatemala, before grief rewrote her story, Rosa had been a dance teacher. Movement was her first language. And when words fail, the body remembers how to speak. But deep inside Rosa, there was something even she didn't know would soon change everything. A language beyond words that 3 silent children desperately needed. The cracks in the Patterson household ran deeper than Rosa first realized. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson had perfected the art of cruelty wrapped in politeness. Rosa, dear, perhaps in your country this passes for clean, but here we have standards. Her smile never reached her eyes. At dinner parties, she gestured toward Rosa with a champagne flute. Good, help is so hard to find these days. You really have to watch them, you know. Rosa swallowed the words like bitter medicine. She needed this job. She needed to survive. But surviving meant navigating more than just Mrs. Patterson's venom. Victoria Chun, the head housekeeper who'd worked for the family for 8 years, saw Rosa as a threat from day one. Small things began to go wrong. Rosa's carefully folded laundry would be accidentally knocked over. Cleaning supplies would vanish from her cart. Once, Victoria reported Rosa for breaking a vase that had already been chipped for months. Just remember your place, Victoria whispered one morning, her voice sharp as glass. Mr. James Patterson was a different kind of absent, a tech mogul who'd built an empire on innovation. He'd somehow forgotten that children need more than trust funds. Rosa saw him maybe twice a week, a blur of expensive suit and leather briefcase, phone pressed to his ear, eyes that looked through his own children as if they were wallpaper. The triplets might as well have been orphans. It was a Thursday afternoon when Rosa heard the front door slam. Dr. Helen Morris, the children's speech therapist, stormed past Rosa without a word, her face flushed with frustration. Mrs. Patterson followed, heels clicking against marble. They're unreachable, Dr. Morris said, her voice breaking. I've tried everything. They don't respond. They don't engage. I'm sorry, but I can't help children who won't even try. The door closed. The house fell silent. Rosa found Emma 20 minutes later, curled in the corner of the playroom. Tiny hands moving frantically in signs Rosa couldn't understand. Tears streamed down the child's face. She was 7 years old and drowning in a language no one spoke. Rosa knelt down. No words, just presence. Then, slowly, Rosa began to sway. A gentle rhythm, side to side. She took Emma's small hands and guided them through the air, a simple wave, a flowing motion, like water finding its path. Emma's tears stopped. Her eyes widened. And for the first time since Rosa had arrived, the child smiled. And yet, none of them knew that the real storm was already forming quietly in the rhythm of small, caring hands. What started as a moment became a ritual. During her afternoon breaks, Rosa would slip into the playroom where the triplets spent their lonely hours. She'd turn on music, not for them to hear, but to feel. She'd place their small hands on the speaker, letting the bass vibrate through their fingertips. Then she'd move. Every gesture told a story. Arms sweeping wide meant big. Fingers fluttering meant butterfly. A spin meant happy. Stomping feet meant angry. Movement became vocabulary. Dance became conversation. Emma was the first to understand, but Ethan and Ella followed quickly. Within 2 weeks, the triplets were creating their own movements, inventing a language that was theirs alone. They'd rush to Rosa the moment she entered the room, hands reaching, eyes bright with something that had been missing for so long. Connection. The frustration that had made them lash out, that had driven away therapist after therapist, began to fade. They smiled now. They laughed silently, their shoulders shaking with joy. They played together with a coordination they'd never had before, moving in sync like a small flock of birds. Rosa taught them to feel rhythm through the floorboards. She showed them how emotion lived in the body, how sadness curved the spine, how joy lifted the chest, how love opened the arms wide. They were blossoming, finally beautifully alive. But beauty, when witnessed by the bitter, becomes a weapon. Victoria noticed the change first. She'd see Rosa's door close during break time, hear the muffled music, catch glimpses of small shadows dancing past the playroom window. Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowed. The children never looked at her that way. One afternoon, Mrs. Patterson walked past the playroom and froze. Through the half-open door, she saw them, Rosa spinning with Emma, all 3 children moving in joyful circles, their faces radiant with something Mrs. Patterson hadn't seen in years. Her own children, laughing, connected, but not with her. The smile on Rosa's face was tender, maternal, everything Mrs. Patterson knew she wasn't. She turned away, throat tight with something between jealousy and shame. James Patterson saw it too, one evening when he came home early for once. He stood in the hallway shadows, watching Rosa guide his children through a simple dance. Ethan reached for her hand. Ella rested her head against Rosa's shoulder. Emma signed something, and Rosa responded with movement. His children, speaking, finally speaking. He said nothing. He simply walked to his office and closed the door. But that single act of kindness would be twisted into something dangerous by those who feared what they couldn't control. Victoria struck first with whispers. "I'm concerned about Rosa," she told Mrs. Patterson over morning coffee, her voice dripping with false concern. "She's overstepping boundaries with the children, spending far too much time with them. It's inappropriate, don't you think?" She planted seeds carefully. Who knows what she's filling their heads with? These people come here with their own agendas. Mrs. Patterson's jaw tightened. The jealousy she tried to ignore now had permission to speak. That evening, she cornered Rosa in the hallway. "From now on, you will limit your interactions with my children to what is absolutely necessary for cleaning. No more playtime. No more whatever it is you've been doing. Do you understand?" Rosa's heart cracked. "Mrs. Patterson, please. They're learning. They're happy. They're my children, not yours." The playroom door stayed closed after that. The music stopped. The triplets waited by the window during Rosa's break times, watching for her, but she never came. Their light began to dim. Emma stopped eating. Ethan started hitting himself when frustrated. Ella rocked back and forth for hours, retreating into herself. They were regressing, and everyone pretended not to notice. But Rosa couldn't bear it. After midnight, when the house fell into wealthy silence, she'd slip down the hallway to their bedroom. Just 10 minutes. Just enough to remind them they weren't forgotten. She'd guide their hands through simple movements in the darkness, teaching them that love doesn't abandon. Victoria was watching. She was always watching. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Patterson's diamond bracelet went missing, then a sapphire brooch. Victoria discovered them hidden in the back of Rosa's closet, beneath her folded uniforms. She reported it immediately, her face arranged in perfect shock. "I can't believe it," Victoria gasped. "But I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. We can't trust these people in our homes. They see what we have, and—" "That's enough," Mrs. Patterson said, but her eyes were cold, fixed on Rosa. The police were mentioned. Deportation threatened. The triplets watched it all unfold, their small hands moving frantically, signing desperately to parents who never learned their language. She didn't do it. Please, she didn't do it. But their words were invisible, their defense silent. No one was listening. It was that lie that would soon set the entire house on fire and shatter everything Rosa had quietly built. James Patterson had built his fortune on data, on patterns, on seeing what others missed. And he'd noticed things were going missing. Without telling anyone, he had security cameras installed throughout the mansion, hallways, common rooms, even the playroom. State-of-the-art, motion-activated, recording everything. He told himself it was about the thefts. But somewhere deeper, he knew it was about his children, about the change he'd seen in them, about the light that had appeared and then vanished. The cameras went live on a Tuesday. By Thursday night, Victoria saw Rosa slipping into the children's bedroom at 11 p.m. She watched through the crack in the door, Rosa guiding small hands through gentle movements, Emma's face peaceful for the first time in weeks. Victoria's smile was razor-sharp as she knocked on Mrs. Patterson's bedroom door. "I think you need to see something." The confrontation erupted in the main hallway at midnight. Mrs. Patterson's voice echoed off marble. "How dare you continue seeing my children after I explicitly forbade it? What are you doing to them? What are you putting in their heads?" "I'm helping them communicate." "You're brainwashing them, turning them against their own family. You're nothing but a—" "Enough!" James appeared at the top of the stairs, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Rosa, stay away from our children. Completely. Consider this your final warning." Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded and walked away. The triplets heard everything from their bedroom. They couldn't hear the words, but they felt the vibrations. They understood anger. They understood loss. At 2 a.m., Emma's small body began to convulse. Panic attack. Severe. Her breathing shallow. Her eyes wild with terror. Ethan and Ella screamed silently, their hands pounding on the door. Rosa heard the commotion from her room. She ran without thinking. She burst into their bedroom, dropped to her knees beside Emma, and began to move. Slow, rhythmic movements. Breathing patterns translated into dance. "In, out. You're safe. I'm here." Her hands guided Emma's, creating a rhythm the child's body could follow. Slowly, Emma's breathing steadied. Her eyes found Rosa's. She was safe. Behind them, no one noticed a small red light in the corner, recording, capturing every moment. Rosa's desperate love. Victoria's planted jewelry from weeks before. The truth, preserved in digital clarity. And in that moment, everything changed, though no one realized the evidence already existed. Morning came with cold finality. "You're fired." Mrs. Patterson's voice was ice. "You directly defied my orders. You manipulated my children, and let's not forget the stolen jewelry found in your possession. Pack your things. You have 2 hours. Rosa's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, I didn't steal anything. The children need stability, not someone who can't follow simple instructions." Victoria stood behind Mrs. Patterson, arms crossed, victory written across her face. "We're considering police involvement. Theft is a serious crime. You should count yourself lucky we're letting you leave quietly." Rosa climbed the stairs to her tiny room, each step heavier than the last. Through the walls, she could hear the triplets crying, not with sound, but with the vibration of small fists pounding on doors, the tremor of bodies throwing themselves against barriers. They knew. Somehow they knew. She packed her few belongings through tears. 7 months of her life folded into a single worn suitcase. 7 months of watching 3 children learn to exist in the world. 7 months of love that was about to be erased. The triplets stood at the top of the stairs as she left, their faces streaked with tears. Emma reached out her hands, signing frantically. "Don't go. Please don't go." Rosa's heart shattered, but she kept walking. The door closed behind her. The children stopped eating. They stopped sleeping. They sat in the center of the playroom. The three of them huddled together, motionless. A silent protest. A grief too large for their small bodies. They wouldn't respond to their parents. Wouldn't look at Victoria. Wouldn't move. For 3 days they sat, barely drinking water, their eyes hollow. James Patterson stood in the doorway on the 4th day, truly seeing his children for the first time in months. What's wrong with them? Dr. Sarah Chun, the child psychologist he'd hired in desperation, spoke carefully. Mr. Patterson, these children formed a crucial attachment. Rosa wasn't just a caregiver. She was their translator to the world. Removing her abruptly, this could cause lasting psychological trauma. Mrs. Patterson waved her hand dismissively. Professional nonsense. They'll adjust. Children are resilient. But James saw his daughter's sunken eyes, his son's trembling hands, their silent, devastating grief. Something was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. But what none of them knew was that the truth had already been recorded, waiting in digital silence. James Patterson sat alone in his office at midnight, the glow of multiple monitors casting shadows across his face. He decided to review the security footage himself, searching for evidence of the thefts. He found something else entirely. The timestamp read 3 weeks prior. Victoria, glancing over her shoulder before slipping into Rosa's room. The footage was crystal clear, her hands placing the diamond bracelet beneath folded uniforms, arranging the sapphire brooch just so, planting evidence with calculated precision. James's jaw clenched, but he kept watching. Hours of footage unfolded before him. Rosa with his children in the playroom, teaching, guiding, loving. He watched Emma's face transform from frustration to joy as she learned to communicate through movement. He saw Ethan laugh, his small body shaking with silent delight. He watched Ella reach for Rosa's hand with complete trust. He saw patience he'd never possessed, devotion he'd never given. He watched his wife walk past the playroom, her face twisting with jealousy. He heard her cruel words, her xenophobic comments, her dismissal of Rosa's humanity. He saw Victoria whispering poison, sabotaging, destroying. And he saw Rosa, late at night, breaking rules to comfort children who'd been forbidden her presence. He saw Emma's panic attack, saw Rosa save his daughter's life with nothing but movement and love. The sun was rising when he finally stopped the footage. He called an emergency meeting. Eleanor, Victoria, both summoned to the living room at 7 a.m. "Sit," he said, his voice carrying a weight they'd never heard before. "Watch." He played it all, every damning second. Victoria's face drained of color as her theft appeared on screen. Mrs. Patterson's hand rose to her mouth as her own cruelty played back to her, her words, her prejudice, her jealousy laid bare. "Get out," James said to Victoria, his voice deadly quiet. "You're terminated. Effective immediately. If you're not gone in 10 minutes, I'm calling the police." Victoria fled without a word. James turned to his wife. "We failed them, our own children, and the one person who didn't." His voice cracked. "We destroyed her." Mrs. Patterson sat frozen, tears streaming down her face, unable to speak. James picked up his phone. "Find Rosa Martinez. I don't care what it costs. Find her and bring her back. Now!" For the first time, he finally saw her, not as a maid, but as the woman who saved his children when he had failed them. They found Rosa 2 days later, staying at a small immigrant shelter 3 towns over, preparing to return to Guatemala with nothing but heartbreak. James Patterson walked through that sheltered door himself. "Rosa," his voice broke on her name. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For not seeing. For not protecting you. For failing you and my children." Tears streamed down his face. This man who'd forgotten how to feel. "Please, come home." The drive back was silent. But when they pulled into the circular driveway, 3 small figures pressed against a window, watching. The moment Rosa stepped in the car, the front door burst open. Emma, Ethan, and Ella ran. Their feet pounded against the pavement, their arms outstretched, their faces radiant with joy. They collided with Rosa in a tangle of limbs and tears, their bodies moving in a language only they shared, swaying, spinning, holding on as if they'd never let go. Rosa sank to her knees, gathering them close, and for the first time in days, the children were whole again. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson stood in the doorway, her face pale. When Rosa finally stood, Eleanor approached slowly, her pride stripped away. "I was cruel. I was prejudiced. I was threatened by your kindness because it showed me my own failures." Her voice shook. "I'm deeply, truly sorry. For everything." Rosa looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Forgiveness was an erasure, but it was a beginning. James cleared his throat. "Rosa, we'd like to offer you a new position. Not as a housekeeper, but as our children's communication specialist and full-time caregiver. Your salary will be tripled. You'll have private quarters in the main wing. And most importantly, you'll be treated with the respect and dignity you always deserved." Over the following months, the Patterson household transformed. James and Eleanor learned sign language. They learned Rosa's dance vocabulary. They sat on the floor of the playroom and moved with their children, finally speaking their language. The triplets flourished. Emma became confident, expressive. Ethan's frustration melted into curiosity. Ella opened up like a flower finding sun. They were happy, connected, whole. And the Pattersons, once cold, distant, fractured, became present. They learned that wealth meant nothing without presence, and that status meant nothing without humanity. But the greatest victory wasn't what she gained. It was what they finally learned about the worth of a human heart. Rosa's story isn't just about one woman or one family. It's about something deeper, something we all carry but too often forget. Prejudice has a way of making us blind. It convinces us that someone's accent, their country of origin, their economic status defines their worth. Mrs. Patterson saw Maid. Victoria saw competition. But three voiceless children saw what the adults refused to see: a woman with a gift, a heart willing to give, and hands that spoke love in ways words never could. Sometimes the people society teaches us to overlook are the ones carrying exactly what we desperately need. Rosa had no credentials, no degrees, no wealth, but she had patience when others had deadlines. She had kindness when others had judgment. She had an unconventional wisdom that saw communication not as words on a page, but as movement, feeling, connection. The Patterson family learned what so many forget: that wealth without empathy is just expensive loneliness. That power without respect is just hollow authority. That a mansion filled with marble and crystal means nothing if the hearts inside it have turned to stone. Rosa's journey was one from invisible to invaluable, from overlooked to essential. But the real transformation wasn't hers. It was theirs. She remained exactly who she'd always been. They had to learn to see. And perhaps that's the lesson embedded in every moment of the story. The people cleaning our floors, serving our food, caring for our children while we chase ambition. They're not invisible. They're not less than. They're human beings with stories, with gifts, with hearts that beat just as powerfully as ours. Three deaf children understood this instinctively. They didn't see status or citizenship. They saw a woman who made them feel seen. And when the adults tried to take her away, those children fought back the only way they could, with silent, devastating love. In the end, it wasn't wealth or power that changed this family, but the heart of the person they least believed in. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones carrying exactly what we need. Tell me, who was the real hero in this story? Rosa, who loved without condition, or the children who refused to let go of the only person who truly saw them? Leave your thoughts below.